So we're going to do an installation on the with the TaylorMade exhaust on this 2011 ZX10, and there's the bike stock, and here's some of the parts. There's the muffler with the pipe. Comes with the bracket already installed on it. Got our instructions, and we got the strap, muffler strap, and a little bag of goodies right there. Gone through the parts list, which is actually pretty nice. On the instructions itself, it actually tells you what tools you'll need and what parts you'll need, so you can go through the parts list to make sure you're not missing anything before you get started. Here is the left side cover, and here's the right side cover. There we go. And we'll leave those bubble wrap for now, and we'll get started. The first thing we'll do is, I'm guessing, I haven't read all the instructions yet, but I'm guessing we'll get rid of the stock can and the catalytic down there. That big ugly thing. One thing I like about the new one is that there is going to be a muffler that's going to hang down there, but it is nice and flat black, which should not be very noticeable. So we'll get started and take some more videos in a minute. Alright, we're picking back up. What I've done is I've got the rear cowl off, took the passenger seat off, then the cowl. It's just 4 bolts. Here, here, and right there. Right here. And now we're going to take the servo off, which is that one and that one. Take those 2 off, and then this thing will come out and we'll do some more work. The rider seat has 2 bolts here, they're already gone, and here. And it's real simple. You take those out and then just slide it to the rear a little bit, it comes right out. Alright, picking back up, what we've done is we've disconnected those 2 cables from this, the servo motor, and I'm just laying the 2 cables right here. I'm actually going to, in a few minutes, I'm going to actually tape those up. Here, let's get a better angle at it. These 2 things right here, I'm going to tape them up, and so they don't rattle or anything. But what we did to enable us to get slack is these 2 nuts right here. That one, and there's one right here. We loosened those up, screwed these adjusting nuts, the big ones right here, all the way down, and that gave us a lot of slack on the cables, and then we're able to pry this retaining clip off, which is right here. I got it. Put it down right here. We won't need that anymore. I'm gonna hang on to it, but we won't really need it. But you pry that off, and that lets you pull the cable holders out of these 2 holes right here. And once you do that, then you can get the cable itself, the little end of it, out of these 2 little slots. If anybody's ever curious and you do this and you want to put it back the way it was, the black one goes, I believe, on this side, and the silver one goes on this side. So black is on the left. If you're looking at it from like front of the bike to the rear, that's the black one, and that's the silver one. And we'll pick back up in a few minutes. Next step is, I believe, reading the instructions, next step is to take the exhaust off, the stock exhaust. Okay, yeah, the next step is to remove this side cover, the fairing, and we're going to remove these bolts here, there, and there's some plastic rivets up in the front right here. And my personal preference when dealing with the fairings on any bike is to use a really long extension with an Allen socket. And the reason I use that really long extension is to make sure there's no chance of that hitting any part of the fairing. It puts me a long way away from the fairing, so that there's no chance of me slapping the fairing with the ratchet. Alright, so we got the fairing off. And the hardest part to the fairing is not the bolts at all, but it's the plastic rivets up front, the things that you still see. They're almost impossible to get out. You just have to pull the fender off of them, and then you can push them out and put them back in the right way. But they're really hard to get out. Here's one right here. You can see the fender just comes off of them, the fairing, not the fender. But so the next step is going to be taking this piece right here off, and that's just a cover. That'll be pretty simple. We'll get that off and then pick up again. Alright, so we went ahead and took the muffler off. That was the next step anyway after the cover. And and that was not really muffler, but the can, and that was pretty simple. This this bracket right here, this clamp, you just loosen that. It's a 10mm hex. You just loosen that up, and then you take this bolt here out of the rear foot peg, which holds it right there. Take that out and kind of jiggle the muffler around a little bit, and it'll come right off. Next step is going to be getting those cables out of the way. I talked earlier about these cables up here, about cinch them together, but there's really no need because they're going to be coming all the way off. They actually go to this little servo right here. You can see them right there, and they'll be coming out along with this catalytic converter here in just a minute. So this next step is really going to be a kind of a pain, and so I wanted to stop here. I don't know if you can see my Allen wrench. It's right here. There's a bolt right there. It's an Allen socket bolt. That's got to come out. That holds this cover on right here. This cover right there. And that has to come out to get those cables out. So we're going to take this out, but it really helps if you have one to have a ball end Allen wrench, because there's really not enough room to get a ratchet in there, and there's not enough room for much of anything else. But if you have a ball end Allen wrench, that works. It's working for me really well. And we'll pick back up again in a minute after I get this off. Okay, one thing they didn't say in the manual, so the instructions say the next thing is to pull the, once you get that cover off, and I'll show you what it looks like with the cover off. You can see the cables coming down right there. See that? There's cables coming down. It's not really helpful. But, so here's the cables right here. But trying to pull them down, I could tell there was something wrong, so I look up here. And one thing the manual didn't cover, or the instructions didn't cover, is that there is a, you see it right there. There's, let me see the light right there. It's right there. And I cut it already, but there was a little tie wrap that wraps together these two cable housings along the cable housings along with some wires right there. We don't want to hurt the wires, so I had to cut that little wire tie, little cable tie right there. Once again, the manual didn't cover that, but if you want those to come out, then you have to. Okay, we got them pulled down through. That was not an easy thing to do. Just an FYI. They did pull out, but you're going to kind of pull them more towards the front, because these, especially this one with the, for some reason one of them was a lot harder than the other one. The first one was actually much easier than the second one. I expect it to be the other way around. But they're both out, and I'm actually going to leave them connected, because I think the next thing is to take this big can off, the catalytic converter. I'm going to leave the cables attached just in case I ever want to go back to stock for some unknown dumb reason. I'll have everything the same, everything will be adjusted properly for the most part, and I won't have to go mount these things back up and figure out where those adjusting nuts are supposed to be. So next thing I think is to take this big can off, and then we'll start again in just a minute. Alright, just a real short one to show you what we're going to be doing next. I've already taken the clamp off. I took the bolt all the way out, and I'm just letting it rest on the header right there. And we'll pull it off in just a minute as soon as we get the can off. But it looks like the mounting bolt for this thing is that big, looks like a 8mm Allen socket. I haven't tried it, but that's what it looks like. Once we take that off, we'll be able to slide this thing off and pull these cables along with it. Well, it didn't take long, about 30 seconds. But you can see we got the can off, and there's the header right there. So that's what we'll be putting our TaylorMade on. But we got that off pretty easy. Just, you don't really rock it too much. You just jiggle it a little bit and then pull to the rear, and it comes right out. It's real tight against the rear tire, so but it does come out fairly easy. But that's a big pile of poop right there. Why Kawasaki thought that would be a nice thing to have underneath the bike, I have no clue. I mean, you can tell the welds are just crap. No attention to detail on this thing. That almost looks like a hole. Obviously it's not, probably, but I mean, it just, the whole construction of this piece of equipment right here is just utter crap. It's ugly, and It just looks like this was done by a fourth grader just learning how to weld or something. It's terrible. Anyway, it's gone, and I can't see myself ever wanting to put this back on. But there it is. I'll keep it just in case. Alright, so what we've done, since the last video was install this little bracket right here. See it right there. And what you have to do is there's a nut on the other side of that goes to that bolt, to the bottom rear suspension linkage. And you're going to take that nut off, and then you're going to put this bracket on there just like that. Now it says in the instructions to replace the nut and tighten securely. However, I just got mine snug because I don't know exactly where this needs to wind up. So to have a little bit of freedom of movement, I just snugged it up for now, and I'd make a mental note to go back and finish the tightening later when I get this, completely installed. Hopefully I still have room to do that. I should. But as I don't know exactly where it's going to wind up, to make it centered, I think we have to leave that snug for now. But next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the TaylorMade can on, and we'll pick it up from there. Alright, so we got the can installed. That's still loose right there. That clamp right there. It doesn't say to tighten it yet, so we haven't. There's the strap that goes on that bracket that we put on just a few minutes ago. And the one thing that I did notice is there is not a lot of clearance, and I guess this is the way it is, between the rear tire and the exhaust. I mean, you can see it right there. Kind of hard. Let me go up from the bottom here. There we go. There's just not a lot of clearance there. My guess is there's a 1/4 inch, but it's clear. Just not much. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the fairing back on. It says to put the fairing back on and leave the, except for the bottom rear mount. So we won't put that one back in, but we'll put the fairing back in except for that, and then I think the next thing is the carbon fiber trim, and we'll pick it back up. All right, so we got the carbon panel, trim panel on the right hand side. Got it somewhat, cinch tight. There's a bolt that you'll take out of the rear of this right side foot peg. For the rider, not for the passenger. And then there's also there's a bolt hole here. So these two are preliminary what holds the this trim piece in place. And now the next step, and it doesn't look like it's going to be easy, is to get this thing centered in this hole. What's a little odd about this one is I've got very little clearance on the back side, but yet I'm up against the stop on the header pipe. So I may have to end up taking this thing back off and grinding this right here to give me more room to push this can up on the header. But I'm going to play around with it and see if I can get it without having to do that. Hopefully I don't, because that'll be a pain in the rear. We'll pick it back up in a minute.